Hello and welcome to Moral Side of the News, our weekly discussion of today's top local, national, and world stories from a moral, ethical, and religious point of view. I'm Shawn Kaelin with the WHAS Crusade for Children, and I'm joined today, as always, by a distinguished panel of local religious leaders. Father John Stoltz, St. Aloysius Catholic Church, Reverend Daniel Corrie Shull, Burnett Avenue Baptist Church, Rabbi Stan Miles, Louisville Melton School, and Reverend Harriett Akins-Banman, New Albany Centenary Methodist Church. As we record this on Thursday, we're just beginning to understand the destruction left behind by Hurricane Melton. Our prayers are with the communities in Florida impacted. We're going to begin this week with the recovery efforts underway in the aftermath of Hurricane Helene. Community after community just completely destroyed.
The death toll across 6 states is 230 and counting. Apocalyptic scenes at every turn.
And how did you escape? Which window did you use?
We opened this window.
In the town of Fletcher, Esteban Hernandez and his family were trapped in his home as those floodwaters rose. This video captures the neighbors rescuing them and their pets using a kayak.
I mean, I had all my animals out, so I was ready to get out.
Now he and his brothers are sleeping in the backyard. And just look at his car, a total loss. Still, he has hope.
Want to fix it.
You're going to fix it?
Yes, I want to open up.
Others counting their blessings. This woman reuniting with her mom, hugging for the first time since the storm.
It was just relief and thankfulness that I have a mom and I have somebody.
Our Morgan Norwood getting a fly along with the National Guard. They've completed more than 400 rescue missions since the storm hit.
Either a piece of a building or the back half of like a white U-Haul.
Over hard-hit Swannanoa, the scope of devastation is clear. This was the scene from the ground just days ago. And in Hot Springs, near the Tennessee border, medical supplies dropped to a school serving as a shelter.
It's like having a lifeline. So to have the type of people that are landing here, the National Guard, when I saw them, I did want to just cry.
So Helene is the second deadliest hurricane to strike the United States in the past 50 years, following Hurricane Katrina, which killed over 1,800 people in 2005. Massive relief efforts underway. The stories just keep getting sadder day after day. 2 weeks later, and many bodies are still being recovered. Just today, there was a story of a single family with 11 that the entire family was lost in a mudslide that without any warning. They were in their home. So I turn it over to you for your thoughts on really both hurricanes, but we haven't had a chance to talk about Helene on this show and the devastation in North Carolina.
It's such a cataclysm. It's so hard to deal with. Obviously, there's something going on in the atmosphere. That is affecting our weather, that's making catastrophic weather normal. There's no way that it should be. But there's another side of this that is equally disturbing. There are folks I know in Florida, and I would presume other places, that these events happen in their vicinity, and all of a sudden they either cannot get or cannot afford homeowners insurance. Mm-hmm. So they're really stuck. I don't know how it would work if a person had a mortgage and all of a sudden they couldn't afford or they couldn't acquire homeowners insurance. Mm-hmm. And so the system, there needs to be changes in the system, not only with regard to the weather itself, but with regard to helping people in their time of needs. Insurance. I want to be insured that I can be helped in time of need. But when those doors are slammed, that too is yet another catastrophe.
becomes yet another justice issue, doesn't it, about affordability and the expectation that we're to have home insurance and to do due diligence for property and that sort of thing, as well as be stewards of creation. The hope-filled side I see of this is following these two catastrophes is the rise of respect and civility that comes out of us and wanting to care for others. Because after those hurricanes went through, we're not really debating political stuff, are we, or who had what sign in what yard. We're on a leveling plane. And the response has to be, how can I help my neighbor, whether that neighbor is 6 states away or next door. So to see that response is very heartwarming right now in a time when we are still yet so divided on so many other issues.
Father John McCoy?
I think Rabbi Miles really hit on an issue that we need to continue to raise related to the frequency of these storms and that we are contributing to these types of natural disasters by our lack of concern as it relates to climate control or as it relates to the climate change, and how climate change has really begun to impact us, not simply longer summers and winters that are warmer, but they also impact our entire ecosystem, our entire universe, and there needs to be some really intense focus on that to try to limit the impacts that we're already experiencing with some really dramatic redress. And so I think that unless we do that, I mean, I'm from Tennessee, and I don't know that I have ever heard of any place in Tennessee being devastated because of a hurricane. We get tornadoes, but hurricanes? We had entire towns that were impacted because of Helene. So we've really got to do something about climate change to ensure that the succeeding generations, that they can survive on this planet, that we don't continue to pollute God's earth.
I agree with Dr. Shull. I think that we all need to accept some responsibility of our participation and our impact on the climate. And that could be, it comes from the use of our carbon fuels, but some things is the way that we take care of our soil and other parts of our environment, which is all related, has to deal with how water moves. It was very important of where we're living, and as much of these disasters have to do with the impact of flooding. And so I think we need to do some work in trying to prevent and some of these tragedies, because we do see our weather events, our climatic events, our climate-related events, I should say, seem to be more extreme right now with the warming of oceans and things like that. And that is not only the work I think that we need to do ecologically, but also in terms of the way that we construct our homes and the placement of homes and things like that, to seek if we can do those to prevent human tragedy, in our future. To work on that, I think is really important to do.
I'd like to revisit something that you just mentioned, Harriet, about civility. Would that it would be so. I was rather disturbed this week when the governor of Florida refused to take a phone call from the vice president of the United States simply to see what could be done to help the people of Florida in advance of the hurricane. Yes, I know it's silly season, but when we deal with life or death situations, we've got to just say politics are of secondary importance. saving lives and property. That's what we need to do with whomever is a person of goodwill and wishes to help.
Indeed.
Well, you know, they say that the Democrats created these hurricanes, and the reason why the hurricanes impacted the areas that they impacted was because they are overwhelmingly Republican. That's why the governor won't return the vice president's call.
Huh?
Did you hear that?
I heard something entirely different, but equally disturbing.
It was on Facebook. I saw it. I was astounded.
It must be true.
It must. Facebook. I mean, of course, it's true on Facebook.
Yeah, there's. You know, wouldn't it be nice if we had a moratorium, not a permanent moratorium, God forbid, but a moratorium on nonsense?
It would be.
And it is interesting that when we're looking to leaders to give us a sense of stability and right action and energy and encouragement at a time like this, we get a leader who chooses not to do that. But on the other side of that is the grassroots efforts that say we are beyond this. There was this lovely report last week on NPR of a very staunch Republican voter in North Carolina, and the misinformation was going about how help would come. And this person said, look, my voting is like number 47 on my to-do list right now, because I'm just grateful our government has responded to the needs of my state. And I am grateful.
I think we've lost that principle, though, of this being our government, because there is the sense that if the Democrats are at the helm or if the Republicans are at the helm, that you're an outsider. And I think that has really reduced our capacity to work across the aisle, to work across parties, and to really emphasize our common well-being in the American empire. And unfortunately, we don't seem to be able to do that because of the personalities that we continue to champion to take our highest offices.
I agree. So the people that we elect are not politicians every day. They're politicians sometimes. They're seeking election sometimes. Otherwise, when they're not seeking election, and while they're in leadership, they are our representatives, they are our senators, they are those in executive office, and that's their work. The politics is a part of that, but it's not everything. And it certainly informs their ideas, and we need, our partisanship brings out ideas and our creativity. I think that's a good thing. I think it's when it takes over the complete identity of someone and the identity of government, and then you take away that sense that there's actually government that works behind that. I think that really does a disservice to us.
I think at this point, though, we have lost the basic definition of politics, which is the formal processes by which we determine how we will live together in this community, in this state, in this nation. Instead, our politics have devolved into really what amounts to personality differences and personality skirmishes. And part of that is because we've had a person with massive influence who has ascended to the top office of the land, who I don't know that he has ever given a coherent speech. It's always been a diatribe where he's attacked people personally, people that he disagreed with, people who were once on his team, who, you know, fell out of favor in some way. And I think that has really impacted our politics in a way that may take us a generation to get past, because we've lost the basic principle of civility. Those things that we tell our children, that we have kind of centered for so long, seems to have taken a back seat. And I'm hoping that we can reclaim the principle of the common good and decency and civility. I hope we can, but it has not been demonstrated for a whole generation of Americans, and so they'll have to rediscover it.
I'm hoping we can get it back quicker than that, and you know, because that is a good vision to have, and I hope that. And just going back to, as we're in the midst of national catastrophes and problems, there ought to be, as we kind of mentioned, some unwritten rules are when those things happen. One is you don't play leaders should not play politics during those times. They shouldn't give out misinformation. They need to stick to facts when a governor or something gives information that it needs to be, and all the information around it needs to be factual. I'm not saying that hasn't happened, but I mean, I think that politics can make people say things that they otherwise would not say in the best interest of everyone. So because the idea there is, in politics, you're looking out for the best interest of those within the party, of those who think like you, and in certain times that shouldn't happen.
It seems like politics has become the absolute lust for the acquisition of power, coupled with the marginalization of any group or person who doesn't think the same way you do.
And then there's retribution on those who do not. And we're seeing that played out in Florida with Governor DeSantis avoiding contact with help. So I think about all that thinking, so how is it that we can pull that back? And how do we as faith leaders help reinstill that and offer that as a hope and a healing agent? And I think at the base level, it starts with civil conversation and discourse and the willingness to say, look, we might be different, but 98% of our DNA, it's the same. So, and all of that sameness, let's find some more sameness around our ideas and our beliefs and our politics.
And Americans desire that, and I think deep down we want to live it out. We don't see it in the larger national news and things like that, but it's just, going back to, we had a comment in the midst of tragedy, hurricane recovery, other kinds of disaster recovery. Americans are very civil and neighborly. We desire it. And the question is, I want to help. And the first question is, what party are you a member of for me to give you help? That's not the question we ask. And so I really think we long for that and want that, but to find the venues to come about that, because there's places where now we are seeking to act very charitably out of necessity. And I think that I think Americans desire for that to be in a larger sphere too. While at the same time that we sometimes think differently from one another, and that's a good thing too if we do it well.
I think to your question as to how do we begin to reduce this tone in our politics and really develop another generation of politicians who will put humanity at the center. I think that we who are moral leaders have to change the way we talk about politics in our pulpits, in our mosque, in our synagogues. Too many American clergy of all religious stripes speak about politics in a very polarizing way. And when we do so, I don't know that we inspire, particularly the young people who listen to us preach or teach, or whatever one's address might be labeled. I don't know that they're inspired to see themselves ascending to those roles as a response to their moral duty in the world. We tend to speak about moral duty in terms of loving neighbor, in terms of being altruistic or being philanthropic, of even helping, neighbors. But we should speak about our moral duty to really live out our faiths in the public square through running for elected office. I don't know that our best and brightest or our most spiritually centered are running for public office anymore. I think they're running from public office. And I think that leaves those positions open for people who don't have a moral compass, who are not persuaded by any particular religious or theological message that centers the common good and humanity. You know, in Christianity, of course, there is the Sermon on the Mount where Jesus, you know, encourages us to love even our enemies, to be compassionate and empathetic to all people. And in every other religious tradition, there is a message that is akin to that. We need to re-articulate those messages and connect it to our moral duty to serve in impactful ways, in meaningful ways in our communities, even as elected officials in various stripes.
And to give the permission and the space in which to have that kind of conversation, to say, I choose to serve and I choose to run because. And it becomes the because out of our moral understandings and beliefs that we choose to place ourselves for election.
Yes,
or
that's
serve.
someone that running for leadership in a community or seeking to do leadership representation, that kind of work, that kind of civil work out of a vision.
Right.
And a vision informed by faith, as we've said, the personal faith of the person, and a desire for the common good, for the good of a community, for human flourishing.
And that
it's
is
not me trying to
tolerant.
impose my faith, not me trying
Yes,
to
right.
keep to impose my religious convictions, but simply using my religious convictions to make life better for everyone. That's the challenge that we're having, I think.
Especially using the pulpit to impose my particular agenda, I gave this, thank God I'm retired. It's a great place to be now. But I gave the same sermon every time we had an election for 41 years. And this is the sermon, it's real short. We have next Tuesday an election. Remember, it is an ethical imperative for you to vote for the candidate of your choice after studying the issues. That's it. But to use one of the greatest aspects of America is the separation between religion and state. That has been, I think that has been a salvation for America. And the idea of America or any country turning into a theocracy is a frightening prospect to me. And I don't care whether it's a Jewish theocracy, a Christian theocracy, an Islamic theocracy. That, by its very nature, a theocracy marginalizes groups and people. It turns people instantaneously into the other. And that, to me, is sinful.
I agree.
Mm-hmm.
That was a great discussion. I knew you all were saving it for this show. I told you. So we have about 5 minutes left in the show. Will, I don't think we're going to play either of the next two packages, but let's move on to this week was the 1-year anniversary of the massacre by Hamas on October 7th in Israel last year. It's 100 hostages remain in Gaza. It's believed by Israeli authorities that 50 of them are possibly still alive, hopefully more than that. But your reflections on the solemn 1-year anniversary.
Every week when I look at, when I visit a Sabbath service, we count the days since this has happened, and when we reached over the number of over 365 days, I feel just despair. There are children still in captivity. What are when they are freed, God willing, it should be soon, what are they going to be like? What help will they need to put their lives back together again? And it is so frustrating and so sad, and loss of human life is sad, and lives have been lost on both sides of not combatants, not terrorists, just innocents who were in the wrong place at the wrong time. This needs to stop. There needs to be a reconciliation somehow. And people will say to me, well, how can that happen? This war has been happening for 70 some odd years, even longer than that. How can there be any sort of reconciliation? How can there be any kind of peace? My answer, I don't know. I'm not a politician. But I do know that the troubles in Ireland were hundreds of years long, and they've reconciled, and there is peace in Ireland today. So if there can be peace after that many years, I believe there can be peace in the Middle East.
Harriett or Corrie or Father John? We have about 2 minutes
It
left.
comes
Maybe.
back to respect and civility and leaning into the listening, and also leaning into that enormous amount of grief, and how do we do that together?
I was watching a story, a report from Israel the other day, and it was heartbreaking to see the faces of the hostages who have been recorded on those videos that Hamas has put out. I do wonder about the trauma that will take years and years and years to heal, if ever. And I had hoped that our global community could lift their voices in a unified way to cause a ceasefire. Now with some of the more recent events, I don't know that that will happen. But I think we can continue to lean into hope, and we can continue to challenge those people who represent us on the global stage to bring this to an end.
There's some justice work that needs to happen there because of the hostages and also the killing of innocents. And I want to hear on the media and for the world, because I know there are peacemakers there too. I know, and I want to see their faces. I want to hear their voices. I want to hear it more often around that.
Very good. Thanks for a great discussion today on some very difficult topics. Father John Stoltz with St. Aloysius Catholic Church, Reverend Daniel Corrie Shull with Burnett Avenue Baptist Church, Rabbi Stan Miles, Louisville Melton School, and Reverend Harriett Akins-Banman, New Albany Centenary Methodist Church. Thanks for joining us this week. Join us again all next week for an all new Moral Side. Have a great week.